Okay, I am Martha, and I am with Ari Moshe, who is an amazing astrologer and musician. And he has agreed to be interviewed, which is wonderful because I had a session with Ari, an astrology reading with Ari, I think in May, a few months ago, in Santa Cruz in his solar powered van. And it was by far one of the most profound experiences I've had. So I was really interested to hear from Ari about his perspective on all of what is going on with our souls on this planet at this time, and just ask some general questions so that we can hear more about what you're doing, Ari. So I guess the first question is, what do you see as this process, that I, like in my books I've been calling, or the things I'm channeling are calling this awakening time, and a lot of us call this awakening time, but I know that in your work you talk a lot about helping people come into alignment with their soul and their soul purpose, and I don't know, just what do you say when you step back and you look at this planet or this all of existence, like what's your sense of what's going on or what's not going on on the big level?
Something that I just keep on finding is that life has its own imperative, its own intelligence, and its own drive to awaken. That like reality is wanting to know itself, life is wanting to realize itself, oneness is wanting to notice itself. So like there's our self-concept and who we think we are, and the lives that we're living and the stories that we have about our life. But I think at the core, there's this impelling process occurring that we can't actually avoid. And it can at times feel like it's an inconvenient thing if it's, contrary to our expectations or our ideas of where we want our life to be heading. But this power is a universal power, and it's just this power of life to awaken to itself. And it seems like right now, we've been in this for a while, but there's an accelerated, ever-deepening growth of this process, like an acceleration of this awakening period. And the deepest truth for me is that I think this is not something we can control. We can't negotiate with it. We can't really modulate it either. It's more powerful than our own personal individual wills and preferences. And so for all souls alive on this planet right now, there's this invitation to become more self-aware. And in the language I like to use, it's really becoming aware of what is my soul program? What wants to awaken? What wants to be realized? And we can only do our best to become as conscious as we can. None of us have all the pieces. None of us have the full picture. Like the caterpillar, as wise and as studied as it might be, or as much yoga as it may have done, or as much meditation, there's still the necessity to go into the darkness. It's still absolutely necessary to go through this phase where the old falls away. The old identity is shed. And the good news is there's a lot of space and support on every level for us to do this. We're held in this transformation process. The caterpillar is held in the chrysalis. Like every life is also designed for evolution. The bad news is it's destructive. And there's, who knows what needs to fall away in the process. Right? But the good news, once again, is that on the other end of it is power, the true power of our soul. Like the soul itself is eternal. The soul is who we really are from the point of view of our individuated consciousness, that which comes in and out of life, that which incarnates and knows itself as Martha, knows itself as me. But Ari Moshe itself isn't who I am. It's just a station. It's just a part of this journey. And the Ari Moshe and the identity structure of my body and the things that come with this experience, that's like, these are my tools. This is how I'm navigating. It's my filter for understanding and experiencing life. But it's not the destination. So there's just this interesting journey for all of us. And I can definitely, speak for my own self in this regard, but everyone that I work with and just the world in large, we're all at different levels of consciousness and different stages along our own journey, but we're all faced with evolution right now. We're all faced with this totally impersonal timing to evolve, to move on. And so yeah, that's a general perspective that I hold right now. And over the next couple of years, especially as we have Saturn and Pluto coming together on the south node of Pluto in Capricorn, to me that really represents some significant structural changes in how we're living. And it's sort of like karmically for each individual, it's time to get our act together and to take responsibility for our own evolutionary growth. When it comes to taking responsibility for our own evolutionary growth, there's little that we can do to force things to like come to resolution. It's like this responsibility I find is really more about cooperating with what wants to happen now, cooperating with the natural timing of our own undoing with the awakening. That's really our only choice, to cooperate or resist. And this is really what Pluto's all about too.
Yeah. So it's like an analogy would be like, if there's a wave, it's gonna hit you and you could like drown and flail in it, or you can kind of find a way to go with it and ride it, or yeah.
And I think what's uncomfortable about any evolutionary phase, which again we're all going through this, is at times it'll call us to step into a skill set we don't have. Right? It's like, well, I have to learn how to swim now. Or maybe for some of us, it's learning how to ask for help. For others, it's learning how to become more independent and self-assured. There's always something that will feel irritating to the existing ego structure. It's like, well, I don't want to have to do that. I don't want to have to learn this. Like, no, it's anything but that. No, I shouldn't have to do like all these ways. And I think ultimately, awakening is destructive and it's all inclusive. And I don't think we have that space. If we're really lucky, there isn't a lot of space for us to hold on to our conditions and our terms. Because eventually we have to face, it's like, okay, I'll choose happiness and joy and peace and contentment as long as fill in the blank. And everything's ephemeral, everything's temporary, and we really can't hold on to these conditions forever.
Yeah. So is there a particular way that you see your astrology work and or your music as playing in? I mean, I'm sure there are many ways, but what do you want to say about the work that you do that helps people navigate this, like this wave hitting them, or this process?
Absolutely. But I mean, what I feel I personally do, and what I'm skilled at when I meet with someone, is sort of just sensing into and feeling where there's strong identification. Where infinite consciousness has sort of decided this is who I have to be, and thus this is who the world is, this is how my relationships are. And it's sort of just with a lot of compassion and honesty, because we need to be compassionate. Like we have to be compassionate with ourselves and with one another. Maybe in a moment I'll talk about the trauma of and the tragedy of shame and blame. And that's a big part of our healing right now. We're all kind of just like children that only know what we know, and we're innocent and we're vulnerable and we're afraid, all of us. That's it. And we hold on to these structures of self because that's the best we know how to do. And so to really kind of penetrate that identity structure with the necessary amount of compassion and gentleness, but, you know, firmness and honesty is important with that, you know, to be penetrating and direct. I got a Scorpio moon in the 3rd house. I have zero interest in beating around the bush.
Right.
Because life doesn't seem to have any interest in beating around the bush with me,
Mm-hmm.
or most of us, to tell you the truth. So, with any of us,
Mm-hmm.
but to be able to have a gentleness when really speaking to our defenses, and that's it. So it's kind of like putting a little bit of a wedge of awareness that people that I work with can become aware of. Oh, this is just a story that I'm holding on to because I believe I need to. And who am I without that? What happens when I'm not in defense and holding on to a version of reality that I think I need to in order to stay safe? I think evolving in many ways really means letting our arms down, being willing to be more vulnerable, fundamentally being willing to not have an answer right now, but having more of an intimacy with what is, with what's arising. And yeah, and in my work with people, what I really love doing, and it's healing for me, is tuning into the soul. I mean, fundamentally, I see people as souls. And the deeper I go on my own journey, the more I find that I have that ability to kind of get to the core and really feel and see and love another person according to who they actually are. You know, and the soul has its own individuality. Like, the soul's eternal, but each soul is like this amazing, precious uniqueness. Like, there's no two souls are the same. Like, everything in creation is unique. And it's always existed. It's just incomprehensible to me. So touching base with the person who, as they really are, is also touching base with infinity. And for any of us to recognize another being means we're also being able to acknowledge that within ourselves. Like, for me to love another is also for me to love myself. To see another is to see myself. Even though you're different than me, if I have enough space in my heart to actually witness you and see you and feel you, it means there's something in me that I'm open to as well. And so this work is just really about healing and compassion and forgiveness. And I do it with my clients. Like, I heal together with each person that I'm with, because there's no way I'm able to really see someone and not also kind of heal and open up something inside of me that I've needed to see.
Yeah, well, I've told you this before, but I'll say it again. So when you were working with me, you know, we had never met before, and we happened to be in person. I know you do work in person and you do work
Yeah,
virtually.
like 99% not in person, actually.
Yeah. So it just happened to be that way. But what struck me was a bunch of things. Number one, that we were in person, and you know, we were in your tiny little van, and your boundaries were like, it was unbelievably intimate,
Mm,
the the connection that you made immediately, right? And the boundaries were impeccable. It
mm,
was like you were a soul and I was a soul, and we were 1000% connected on a soul to soul level, and that was it. Like, it was like the purity of it,
yeah,
you know. It
yeah.
was like, whoa, blew me away. And that I could completely let go and fully trust you to
Mm,
literally connect to my soul.
mm,
And then I could see your soul, like at least my version of your soul. You were like sitting, like what I was seeing was this sadhu. Sadhu. I saw a sadhu. You were like a sadhu sitting in the cosmos, you know? I was like,
totally a soul archetype of mine, for
yeah,
sure.
yeah, I know, I saw it. And so I had this feeling like, hey, Ari, Sadhu in the cosmos. Nice to see you again. All right,
Mm,
cool. So you're about to really help me out here on Earth. I appreciate that.
mm,
And then you did. And it was like I could see the energy of whatever it was that needed to come through you to me. Like I could literally see it coming to that sadhu and then coming out your voice. Like literally, I could see it. So and then everything you said, it just like pierced me. And it was direct channeling. Like I mean, so I'm in this year-long course that you're doing with New Paradigm Astrology, and I've had a bunch of readings this year throughout that time, but yours was the first one where, I mean, you were referencing the chart, like you reference it, but it's like, it seemed to me like, and you correct me if I'm wrong, it's like you use it as like a little touchstone and then you just channel whatever needs to come through you as a vessel. That's what it felt like. Is that accurate?
A lot of people say it that way, actually. So kind of. The way that I experience it is I kind of breathe in the chart. And it usually happens when I'm sitting with a person. Hopefully there's a helicopter, so you can hear me.
Okay.
It usually happens once I'm with a person and I can feel their energy. Like usually before I sit with someone, I don't like totally get the chart yet. Years ago, I would like spend a lot of time with the chart and I would figure it out, write things down. And it was very left brain. And now I'm really like, I crave connection. I can't operate without connection. So for me, it's all about letting the connection with the soul reveal the chart to me, not the other way around.
Yeah.
So I allow myself to become receptive, to slow down, to feel, to breathe, and also come into a prayer where I just remember that my healing is your healing. It's one healing. And whenever we enter into a sacred space, an intentional space of love, with the intention to return to the truth, in that space, there's really no giver and receiver. There's just healing. It's one journey. So I connect to that, and I have this gratitude for what I get to heal and work on my own personal journey through that. And then it's just presence. Like I might look back at the chart to remember where certain things are, but I very, very seldomly even mention the chart during a session. I don't usually think of it as channeling. I just think of it as coming into resonance.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like paying attention. Like you don't need a chart to give a reading. Like it's all right here, right? Yeah. Whatever the chart says, it's the soul, which is right now. It's all right now. So presence and awareness and attunement can reveal this. But the chart gives me the language, it gives me the template, it gives me the archetypal dynamics, which is really helpful for me because it helps me understand archetypally what this journey is all about, where the soul's coming from, what their evolutionary purpose is. It gives me like the raw data, but what makes it come alive, like what makes the chart have a real soul reality to it is the connection with the individual. And then the insights that I receive are just sort of like, usually when I close my eyes, I actually kind of see the chart. And I just kind of let it come together, or it's like the synthesis of feeling and emotionally connecting and viewing. I don't usually think of it as psychic or channeling. It's just letting it clarify, becoming spacious. It's kind of like if you lost your keys and you just decide to stop where you are and relax and drop focusing on finding the keys, but kind of just let it, let the energy of your keys and your rough visual memory of where you last, right, to let it happen. It's like I'm very Neptunian, so it's kind of like letting the water settle.
Yeah.
And all the objects that are buoyant will rise to the surface. Like what's meant to be seen. And there's a principle of faith. Again, I'm not like manipulating or pulling things out consciously, but Jesus said, like, when two or more come together in my name, I will be there, something like that. That's kind of what I draw upon. I don't have to search or seek for information. Just being in a space of love and trust and allowing it reveals itself. And sometimes like it won't come through me, it'll come through the person that I'm with.
Yeah.
That will say something. I'm like, oh, thank you for saying that. That helps it all click. Or I'll have a question for them, or And sometimes I'll do toning work too, and sometimes I'll even sing
Yeah,
to the people that I work with.
what you did with me was
Oh, I
amazing.
did? Okay, cool. I don't remember
Yeah,
that.
yeah, you did. You sang you and I both have Neptune in the fourth house. Is that right? Yeah. And so you sang a song you had written about home.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just recorded that one I'm making an album.
Oh,
I just
awesome.
finished recording that song.
Do you want to say more about your music?
Sure, maybe I can sing it. I'll
Yeah.
play the guitar right here. Can you hear the guitar well
Yeah.
enough?
Yeah,
Okay.
that's good.
Pursue hope, ceaselessly. Be where you are. Relentlessly. בכל דרכיך. בכל דרכיך. תאהב. תאהב. Home is where you are, because that's where you happen to be. This is your resting place. For eternity. Oh, 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 oh. בכל דרכיך. בכל דרכיך. תאהב. תאהב. Pursue hope. Guiltlessly. Be what you are. Forever free. Whoa, 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 whoa. בכל דרכיך. בכל דרכיך.
Thank you. So beautiful. Gonna make me cry again. Do you want to say, like, what that's reminding me of is, for me, that touches me so much because of the whole Neptune in the fourth house thing, right? So I so like for me, I think my Neptune in the fourth house has a lot to do with that I grew up all around the world, and I don't know, have this like sort of ethereal sense of home, but but then at the same time, I also have this ability to help people feel truly, I can connect, like you can connect with people right where they are. And I have this like really big sense of humongous, vast sense of us being at home in everything, and that everybody is at home in everything.
Yeah.
So I don't know if you want to talk about yourself and your own journey and
Sure.
any of all that.
Sure. It's a little bit, but just what feels useful. And Neptune in the fourth. Neptune is everything. So wherever we have Neptune is where we find everything. So the fourth house is home. Fourth house is like the very imminent experience of home. It's family, it's care, it's nurturing. And so there's a transcendental movement within consciousness with Neptune in the fourth to realize the universality of home. And one of the challenges with that is as per Neptune, is it can become very spiritualized and inaccessible. Like very much in the conceptual realm, especially if it's in Sagittarius. Is yours in Sagittarius?
Yep, sure is.
Yeah. It's very much in the conceptual realm. But then it comes to like basic things like the human creature body, because there's something about the unity of spirit and flesh, the unity of spirit within all things, that doesn't negate or alienate or say, well, yeah, everything's God, but those things right there, not. So even, touch, food, all the different, forms of subjective human nurturing, those are expressions of divine love as well. So even having a family can be an expression of realizing the universality of home. It's both realizing the transcendent in the immanent and also realizing the immanent through the transcendent. It's like every mundane experience of life is also the sacred. And so for me, I'm also Sagittarius in the fourth house, and my Neptune is conjunct Jupiter and Mercury. I'm preparing to become a father, big changes in my life.
Yeah.
And so it's a part of me completely reevaluating, what does home look like for me? What is home? What is home? Is it about a place? Is it about where I live? Is it about how I live? And I'm finding, more and more that home is really this state of openness and this state of love and this state of vulnerability and authenticity. In fact, Sagittarius in the fourth house is really about authenticity is home. And where you can be authentic, where you can be honest, that's home, because that's where you can fully show up. That's where God is too. It's like the divine doesn't show up when we're living out our ideas or beliefs, right? Spirit, magic, miracles, it happens when we're honest. And honesty is just a present moment kind of thing. It's not conceptual. So that's something that I'm learning about, my own life and what I see for others as well.
And Jupiter happens to be transiting all that for you, I'm assuming, right?
Yeah, it's about to enter back into my fourth house, so that'll be interesting.
Yep. I know that feeling. Yeah, cool. Do you want to say any? Sorry, go ahead.
Sure. I'm actually going to start writing a book on Jupiter.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Wow.
So one of a billion things that have been calling me forever. Jupiter, in my opinion, I'm sure it's out there, not to be arrogant, but I haven't come across any good books or materials on Jupiter that really gets to the core of it. I mean, I get a lot of stuff around like opportunity and luck and expansion, but it's like, to me, the heart of Jupiter is about honesty and nature. Because Jupiter is about the understanding of truth, and the truth is truth is what is. And so any constructs or mechanisms of belief or idea keep us in belief and keep us away from the truth. But like, to know the truth, it's about being honest. It's about being natural and authentic with our own self. So you go into nature and you don't have a bunch of ideas in your mind, but we allow ourselves to become receptive to nature. And the river can teach us, the trees can teach us, the air can teach us. We can have a direct experience. And I really think Jupiter is an amazing pathway for greater insight into our own nature and greater insight into how we can live in harmony with life, so that there's growth and there's healing for everyone. But the principle of honesty and sincerity and authenticity, I just don't think these are concepts that are really understood or talked much about, because we love filling in and replacing sincerity and authenticity with ways to be, things to do. So I'm going to start writing a book. I'm going to start doing it through weekly articles that I'll be publishing, probably on the New Paradigm Astrology blog. We'll see where it goes, but it's a way for me to really tune into the energy of Jupiter and just start, getting this material out there. Another quality to Jupiter is you learn through teaching, like just by tuning into the truth and feeling into it. We become aware of the principles of the Tao, right? Like what are the principles of nature? It's true in a building, it's true in your office, it's true in the bathroom as much as it's true in nature. It's like the principles of nature are true. Mm-hmm. And so we study them, we become aware of them by learning to align our actions and our thoughts and our behaviors with them. But so often we create this separation between, different categories of life, like our work life and our nature life. But really, Jupiter is where we can uncover simply what's true and learn to live authentically in our lives, to be authentic to who we are. And that's where a lot of insight comes. So yeah, that's something that I'm going to start doing pretty soon.
That's really exciting.
Yeah.
Because in the New Paradigm Astrology course, you did the classes on the water signs,
and Pluto, yeah.
And Pluto, yeah, and they all hit me so deeply. Like I was when I was listening to the Cancer one, I actually happened to be driving through Santa Cruz. That is, like months ago, way before we had our session. I happened to be in Santa Cruz, and I live in Santa Barbara, so that's kind of unusual. But I was driving down whatever that main road is that goes in and out of Santa Cruz, and I started sobbing, driving, listening to you talking about Cancer, because I don't identify that much personally with Cancer until I heard you talk about it. And then I went, oh my God, I need Cancer. Oh my God. And then it hit me on all these levels, how all of the needs and the being at home. And I think you were talking about being cozy in your bed with your blankets. Can't remember. And you had pillows on. I can't remember. Yeah, it was something like that. And it just hit me so deeply. And then the Pluto one too was boom. Like I had to listen to it a few times, just wow. And you wrote the foreword. What is it? The foreword in Jeffrey Green's Pluto.
That's right.
Yep. Yeah, Pluto book. Yep. Yeah, and I could just feel how deeply you feel these energies. It's not just an intellectual thing, obviously, for you. So that's super exciting that you'd be doing it for Jupiter.
Yeah, it's time.
Yeah. And do you want to just outline like all the different things that you do for people, like on a concrete level, and how people can connect with you?
Sure. I call them intuitive guidance sessions. I work with, the paradigm of evolutionary astrology that I learned from Jeffrey Wolfe Green. And I use that as the basis, and I just do soul work with people through these intuitive sessions. And I'm available for anyone that's wanting to understand, kind of further clarify and embody their soul's purpose in this lifetime. So that's my main work, these sessions. I'm very available, very grateful to do that kind of work. I also do group classes. Right now I'm actually teaching a 6-week class series with a group of people where every week we're looking at 2 or 3 charts from the class. And as I look at their charts, I'm answering their questions, but I'm also explaining and teaching. So it's a really fun way of learning through direct human connection. I just really resonate with that way. I have an ebook, a beginner's book for evolutionary astrology, several audio products. I have teachings on all the planets and all the signs on my website for purchase. I also have some free audio of Pluto and Neptune through the 12 houses. Definitely worth checking out. I'm doing a monthly series on Chiron with Chris and Fontana. It's on YouTube through the EA Zoom meetings. And then every couple months I'm on EA Zoom meetings teaching about something. And those are always fun. I'll often look at charts live with participants during those classes, and it's a very spontaneous and fun and interactive way to connect. Right now, as I'm kind of stepping up into fatherhood and figuring all that stuff out, I am called to show up more. I'm called to become more available, and I'm in an active inquiry process. It's an interesting combination of carrying a lot of wisdom and a lot of gifts and skill and availability, but kind of still feeling into how can I do more. So I feel very available to teach, and not just astrology, but to just be teaching and to be available for the life journey. I think what is most helpful and beneficial right now are spaces where community can come together, where there's a lot of compassion and permission for us to be where we are. With all this Capricorn energy, one of the biggest hurdles for healing is shame. Where we meet we meet what's happening inside with that sense of, okay, this isn't allowed. This isn't okay. There's something wrong with me. I can't bring this into the world. I'm very drawn to be talking about sexuality and the healing between men and women. And in particular, working with a lot of men, but also spaces where men and women can be working together in a very loving and safe environment. Because I feel that ultimately this is about the inner marriage, uniting our masculine and feminine forces within. And as a collective, we're kind of coming into this unification. Of course, the timing will bring it up that the external manifestations will be really charged. So the separation between the masculine and the feminine energies, as it manifests through what we call men and women, it's strong. And so it's a symbol of healing, of our own personal healing, to be healing our relationships, to be cultivating accountability, but also forgiveness and compassion, to be cultivating a path and an understanding beyond shame and blame. Because really at the core, there is just so much tenderness and innocence. And if we can start meeting one another more and more in this place of self-acknowledgement and care and trust and maturity, so much can heal. I really feel that healing our relationships with one another is a trigger point for just collective healing. Bringing love back into our lives between one another is a huge acupuncture point to heal so many other things in the world. So I'm drawn to explore that more. I'm still doing my own healing and figuring this stuff out, but there's a point in our own journey where it's like, this is very much a Chiron thing. We just have to give our gifts. We just have to share. And there's something very healing about, for me, to acknowledge we're all in this journey together. Like when I do a session with someone, when I teach a class, I don't feel like I know more than anyone. This journey is arising for me more from this like humble realization of like, I've been given something to give. It's mine to share. And if I don't share it, I find that I live in ignorance. It's like, it stagnates and I suffer. So I have a dharma, I have a mandate to be teaching, holding space, sharing, making myself available for more people. So I'm kind of just in prayer and tuning into more ways that I can do that. And music is a part of that for me as well. I'm finishing my album in the next month or two, and it'll be out really soon. 12 beautiful songs. I got an EP with 3 of those songs already on Bandcamp. It's arimwolfe.bandcamp.com. But soon it'll have 12 songs on Spotify, on iTunes, all of that stuff. And it's my prayer to share my music with the world. And for me, music and teaching kind of go hand in hand, because my music are teachings that point to the truth. And the vibration of song, the bhakti, the devotion of song is really important to me. It's embodiment and connecting with my emotions and not just talking about things, but also praying with it. And sharing harmony and sharing space with other people is really, really precious to me. So we'll see how that can emerge. For all of us right now, especially as Saturn goes direct next month, it's sort of a like, get your shit together kind of time. It's like, move forward. not necessarily have it all figured out right away or ever, but move, and there's discomfort in that for everyone, because there's a very Capricornian Saturn awareness of, I'm not old enough, I don't have the skills, I don't have the tools, I've never been here before. And so to allow ourselves to sort of be young, it's a Capricorn thing, to be, okay, I'm just a young Jedi learning and finding my way, I have a long way to go, and to start where we can. I find that life brings the teachers, life brings the teachings, life brings the insights, and there's just something really healing and mature and grounding in doing what we can with as much sincerity as possible, and letting the rest just kind of sit, letting it open. And this is a great time to get a session. This is a great time to work with your elders. This is a great time to go into ceremony. This is a great time to really connect with, what is my purpose? What is my calling? How can I embrace that more lovingly and clearly and consciously right now? Also, we just entered Virgo season. So there's that as well. It's, it's very earthy right now. We're coming into a very earthy time period.
Right. Yeah. And it feels kind of like when you brought up the idea of the caterpillar and the chrysalis, it's like a person happens to be, at a particular stage of that the transformation of that caterpillar. And it feels like at each moment, each of us really, there's a particular thing we need as we're, what's the word, as we're
Right.
changing.
Metamorphosis.
Yeah. What that long word. Like right at one particular moment, we might need, a song, or we might need a session, or we might need to sit under a tree, or whatever it is, and it's going to penetrate us and seep into us in a particular way that we need right that second. And then tonight we might need something else, whatever it is. But and then like when you're talking about the whole masculine feminine thing, I could go on about that for days. I'm thinking a lot about that myself. Yeah, it feels like similarly, like us as a collective consciousness, that we all, like all of us also, it feels to me like maybe we are all together collectively a caterpillar in terms of certain topics. And that feels like one of those topics to me at this moment. Like I'm sitting here personally going, oh, so interesting. Like I'm suddenly, being asked to channel these books that are talking about the divine masculine and divine feminine and the divine intermarriage, and then all this healing, and then I'm hearing other people talking about it. It's suddenly this thing in my personal life, right? But it feels like obviously a much, much bigger collective thing, and that we as a collective, like we're only at a particular very beginning stage with it. It feels like to me.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah, like this thing that you're talking about, like there's so much polarity and polarization of it, in our past and in our very, very recent past, actually, even in our present. And I completely resonate exactly with what you're talking about, that what I feel like I'm being called to do is sit with it, like on a one-on-one basis with, like a particular person, but then also in the collective, like I'm feeling like, as opposed to being like the angry feminist that maybe I was before in my younger years, like now I certainly would call myself a feminist still, but it's more, for me now, it's about like, I just come into this place of stillness, and I'm suddenly really fascinated, and I feel so much compassion for all of us, like my own divine feminine, my own divine masculine, like you as a man, me as, like the whole picture. Like I suddenly feel like I'm at ground zero, like I'm starting fresh at this new place, and I'm going, and I'm just like taking this really deep breath, and I'm just like quiet with it, and I'm going, what is this? Like it feels like we're doing something new, and with all of us, and I'm just totally fascinated by it. and it's a really big deal to me. Like it feels like it's really, really present and really important. And I know you and Tim did a video about the divine masculine recently? Was that?
We chatted about something, yeah.
Yeah, something like that. Anyway, I was watching it whenever that came out a few weeks ago, and I was going, do more of this, please.
Ah, yeah. Okay,
Yeah,
good. Yeah.
yeah. And I asked Kai Pacha also to do videos on relationship stuff, which he did. But then, I mean, also from him, like, it just in general, like, I personally, just for your information, am really wanting, like, I'm ready to absorb, like, what is the experience of other people, you know, right now around all of these issues. It just feels so crucial.
Yeah, I think it's so crucial to be sharing these things.
Yeah. And to be
Yeah.
holding that space.
And to be able to create more and more space for these sharings to happen without that shame and blame.
Yes, exactly.
Because a lot of the sharing has been happening, but there's still a lot of tenderness and wounding, and simply put, a lack of acknowledgement where the feminine has been violated. So of course there's still a lot of charge. A lot of women are angry, and a lot of men are on defense, or a lot of men are carrying a lot of shame and don't feel like there's a space for them to talk about their own experience or their own emotions. In fact, if men have done things that are out of alignment, I had a friend recently who wrote a beautiful post, as many men have been, about his violations of the feminine. And I thought that was so beautiful. And then he took it down
Oh,
because someone else, he discovered that someone else did that and then was arrested.
oh, wow.
And so there's something about how men need to feel safe right now to express and acknowledge and own up to where they haven't acted in alignment. But for that to be met with tenderness and care, because there's so much vulnerability for men to embrace the way that they fundamentally at the core have been disconnected from their own feminine,
Yeah.
where they've been conditioned and have believed that it's not safe for them, it's not appropriate for them to be connected to their feminine. That, in my view, is where the violence comes from. That's where the external violence comes from, this inherited pattern of suppression of the feminine within. And so it's, I mean, I love working with men. They're probably the smallest number of people I work with, and maybe half the men that I work with are probably not even straight. But I love working with everyone. I really, in particular, love working with straight men. It's probably like 1 out of every 20 clients or something like that, because for whatever reason, straight men are the least frequent client. Like they're the people they're the population that is least likely to get a session, interestingly enough. Although they are the population that's most likely to become an astrologer, so figure that one out.
Yeah.
They're the least likely to be vulnerable. They're the least likely to, right? But when they do, it's like, this is where the healing is, you know. And as a brother, it is healing for me to bear witness to another who is ready to be honest, to expose himself, to be vulnerable, to be seen, to not have to hold it all together and be in this vigilant space of needing to be safe for everyone, feeling that it's not okay for me to be who I am. It's such a big collective part of the healing of the masculine, for men to be able to connect with their own feminine, their own tenderness, their own vulnerability, and for that to be held. I feel like I have a very beautiful way of holding a safe and loving space for all people. So I'm specifically really drawn to working more and more with men. And I don't know what that will look like, maybe more men's groups or just a class for men. But there's a lot to share, a lot to talk about, and a lot to teach too when it comes to the archetypes of astrology and looking at the Mars and Saturn archetypes. You know, Saturn in our chart speaks so much to social conditioning, social roles. And Saturn speaks to the archetype of like the repressed father that works really hard and feels sacrificed, feels compromised, but then has to wake up the next day and do the same thing. And so there's often like a lack of love, a lack of tenderness in the Saturn archetype. And then that Mars, which is just like go, 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 but doesn't have any perspective. So there's a lot to unravel. I love working with women too, because it's also very healing for me. And I just love working with anyone in a space where we can be opening into compassion and forgiveness and really looking at what is, and healing our own divisions, healing where we're divided inside, and bringing love and respect back to our own selves. That to me is really the most precious work, and kind of just the essence of what I do.
So awesome. And noticing our time. I feel like we could talk for a lot longer. This is so great. So what is the best way for people to reach you?
My website, arimoshe.com. Follow me on Instagram. I just joined. I'm gonna be posting a lot there. It's Ari M Wolfe, Wolfe. And yeah, website. Got my YouTube channel, Heart and Soul Centered Astrology. And I'm trying to make myself easily accessible, because people keep on being like, so where can I find you? I'm like, I got a website, or I don't know. But I keep on getting that question. It's like, where can I find you? I'm like, okay, I need to somehow find ways to be more findable. So Instagram is what people say. So I'm working with that one right now. That's
Cool.
what I got.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. When I post this on YouTube, I will post all of those things too.
Cool.
Yeah. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Martha. It's a joy to share this with you.
Yeah. And thank you for existing on the planet.
Have no choice.
Yeah, you do. Well, I think you had a choice. I think you came, and I'm glad.
Sure. Well, at this point, it's either go with it or don't. Cooperate or resist.
Well, thank you for going.
I guess that's what I mean. Yeah. I find it's easier to cooperate.
Yeah. You're great. Thank you. Talk to you soon.
All right. Much love to you.
Bye.
Bye.